Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into my speech. I'm really excited to be sharing with you a topic today that is really important to my heart. Wanted to start by sharing a little bit of a background with you on a story of this young woman right here. It's my cousin Noelle. In March of 2013, Noelle was diagnosed with stage 3C colon cancer. A couple days later, on Easter of that year, she's actually rushed into emergency surgery where they removed the entire right side of her intestine, as well as 27 lymph nodes, 6 of which were actually found cancerous. Noelle had a renewed sense of life and decided to go into social work to help children who had been abused and neglected by their families, and continued with her education in that time. Was in remission for about a year, but unfortunately, in 2014, was re-diagnosed with cancer and was pronounced to be terminal and passed away September 1st of 2014. The reason why I share the story with you is because she is the reason why I chose this topic, and also she is the face to me of this issue as well. Talking about supporting the legalization of physician-assisted medical aid in dying for terminally ill patients. One, because it's important to provide closure to patients and to give them control over their life again when they have a terminal illness that they actually have no control over. I also think it's important to provide closure for families who would otherwise face not only a major financial burden, but would also have to watch their loved ones suffer. And I think that it's also really important to understand what death with dignity, as I will refer to it, is before considering supporting it. I think that this is a really important and relevant topic because everyone can relate to losing a loved one or almost losing a loved one and not wanting to watch someone in their family suffer. So I think that is the major relevance of this topic for people. Wanted to first talk about the states where this law is actually already legal. There are 5 states in our country right now: New Mexico, Montana, Vermont, Washington, and Oregon. There are specific requirements in these states in order to be eligible to access death with dignity laws. You have to be 18 years of age or older and also a resident of that state at that time. A big thing for me, and another requirement, is that you have to be competent mentally to make your own medical decisions. You have to be able to make those choices for yourself. So it is really important that a patient is in their correct state of mind in order to make this decision. There's also a major requirement is to be diagnosed with a terminal illness where you only have 6 months or less to live. So this is just not for anyone that would want to end their life due to an illness. You have to be terminal with less than 6 months to live. These states really act as an example to other states and perfect models for how the death with dignity law works. And hopefully, sometime in the near future, this law will come to pass in other states as well due to the successful stories that have come out of the states where it is legal. Another person that I wanted to speak about was an advocate for death with dignity. Her name is Brittany Maynard, and she was a really popular face on social media within the past year. She was another young woman that was found out that she actually had a terminal brain cancer and decided that herself and her husband would move to Oregon, a state where this law was actually legal and she could access it. While she was in Oregon, she became a major face for Death with Dignity. I know I myself saw her all over Facebook and on social media and followed her story, and a lot of other people did. It really brought a lot of interest as well. She reached out to an organization called Compassion and Choices while she was in Oregon and actually became an advocate with them for Death with Dignity before her death, which she actually accessed the Death with Dignity law in Oregon, and passed away peacefully with her family and her husband in her home. I think that the importance of this option to patients is something that should really be considered because when someone is pronounced terminally ill, their quality of life really decreases, and some people become bedridden in wheelchairs, cannot feed themselves, so put on feeding tubes. So it's important to understand that you really lose your grip on life, and the life that you lived before really doesn't exist anymore. I think it's important to really come to a terms of closure on life and to be able to reflect on life and enjoy life at the end, and not so much worry about your passing and how your family members will deal with it. So I think that it's majorly a peace of mind for people. On the deathwithdignity.org is a great site if anyone's looking for additional information on these laws. They do touch on the fact that a lot more lethal prescriptions used in this law are actually prescribed than taken by patients. So it's not even that death with dignity is so much accessed by people when people pass away in this way. It's the fact that they have an option over a terminal illness that they really have no control over. And I think that that's huge, not only for patients, but also going into closure for family members. Family members know that someone who is terminally ill has really come to terms with their life and has made this decision. The family does not have to watch the loved one suffer and deteriorate. And they also have peace really knowing that they've come to their own terms. I found an article on money.com about the cost of healthcare at the end of a person's life and found out that 1 out of 4 Medicare dollars is actually used in end of life care. And in the last 5 years of their life, an individual can rack up to $39,000 worth of medical debt, which then their family members would be responsible for. So not only watching a loved one's life deteriorate and knowing that they are at peace with their life, but also considering the fact that families have a huge financial burden that they have to deal with after the fact. And a lot of times, even 40% of households, it actually exceeds their assets. So it is really a huge thing to consider as well, the financial burden of this. Another picture that I wanted to actually show you guys this is again my cousin Noelle with my other cousin Tara, her sister. I continue to show you pictures such as this because I really think it's important to understand that it's important to remember people in their best light. And the reason why I really strongly reiterate this point is because I've watched my aunt really suffer, remembering my cousin in her last days, being very ill, without her hair, unable to feed herself, unable to really talk. And I think that that's a really haunting image, and I couldn't imagine having to watch a child or another loved one that close to me pass away in such a way. I was lucky enough to really remember Noelle in her best light, and I think that's important to remember people in the way they would want to be remembered and for the things that they've done in their life. Another important aspect is really understanding the death with dignity law and what it entails. There's actually a request timeline for someone who wishes to access this law. There has to be an oral request to your doctor, followed by a 15-day waiting period before a second oral request to access this law, which basically to be prescribed the medication that you would take to end your life with dignity. After the second oral request, a written request is required, which must be supervised by 2 people who are not family members and who are not any way involved with your health care. There's simply witnesses for this to make sure that you are writing out your own death with dignity request. Then there was a 48-hour waiting period between the written request submitted to a doctor to when you can actually pick up the medication at the pharmacy. So a patient has a lot of control over the process, and there are a lot of safeguards in place in the states that you are allowed to access this law. Again, the written request has to be witnessed by 2 people that are not affiliated with your healthcare. Diagnosis has to be certified not only by your original doctor, but also by a consultant physician. Both doctors have to deem the patient mentally capable of making medical decisions. If at any point either doctor feels that this might not be true, a patient would then be required to have a psych evaluation prior to being able to access this law. You also need to be able to self-administer and ingest the medication. The medication is another point that I wanted to touch on. The 2 drugs that are involved in this are either secobarbital, which is if a patient can swallow, they would take actually 9 grams of this medication, or if a patient requires a liquid, it would be 10 grams of liquid pentobarbital. Both, in a nutshell, are medications that, when overdosed, would make a patient fall into a very, very deep sleep. Eventually, their breathing would stop, other life processes would stop, essentially ending their life, and they would pass away peacefully, more or less in a very deep sleep. So there was no pain involved in this. Going into that opposition to death with dignity, I noticed that there was a lot of religious concerns, both from my peers in our modules and also my own research. The big thing that I wanted to touch on and focus on was the fact that some people equate death with dignity with suicide, which is in no way true. Suicide is ending an open-ended lifespan, whereas death with dignity is simply a patient is already in the process of dying and is seeking an option to hasten the process. Their options are limited, and their objective is not to end an open-ended lifespan, but to actually just hasten up a point where they would be suffering. The underlying cause is cancer, not the person killing themselves. Cancer is killing them. So I think that's really something that is important to understand when considering religious perspectives of death and dying, that this person is dying anyways, but they're really in a humane way ending their suffering. Some religions I know to see this as an act of compassion, while other religions see it as a morally bankrupt practice. And I do understand that. And I think that that's why it's so important to understand that you're not ending an open ended life, you're hastening an already inevitable death. Death with dignity really provides patients with dignity, control, and a peace of mind over their end of life. And contrary to it being believed to actually contribute to a culture of death, it's actually allowing people to focus on their end of their life and give them a peace of mind. In Oregon, in 2013, 71 people accessed death with dignity, which is only 0.2% of the death rate. So it's really not even accessed as much as people may think. It's the point that it is an option for people who have no other options in their terminal illness. So again, I think that it's really important to consider supporting this law, and I hope that you will as well, not only for giving patients the options to take control over their life, but also to cause less grief for family members, along with lessening financial burdens in that respect. And I hope that these points will at least be considered for anyone that is considering supporting this law should it come to pass. This topic, researching it, really made me realize that life is too short, and really made me have a lot more respect for Noelle and the way that she was able to carry on with dignity in her life even after being diagnosed. Actually, in Greenfield, Mass, a park is being put up right now and being built in honor of my cousin Noelle, due to her advocacy work for children and her work in social work. So again, I think it's a really great way to remember someone in their best light, that people are not remembering Noelle for the way that she suffered, but for the way that she lived life so gracefully. And I think that's really important, that we fight for our loved ones the way they fight for themselves, and also to have the best end of life options for not only our loved ones but ourselves as well. So again, I hope that everyone will really consider supporting Death with Dignity should it come to pass, and I really thank you for watching.